In the previous e-learning, we talked about what the SAP HANA development perspective was used for, and a little bit about how to create and import projects. But we didn't get into the details of any one particular type of project or development artifact, or how any of the project contents are executable or exposed to the outside world. All the access to executable objects in HANA Extended Application Services is done via HTTP. So there's an embedded web server inside of HANA. But before we can expose anything, whether it's JavaScript, an OData service, HTML content, we have to first set up our application descriptors and our access control. And this all must be done per package. So I've created a new project and it's associated with a particular package, but nothing that I build, even this test.txt, is really exposed to the outside yet. In order to set up that exposure, we have to create two files, at least at the root package. So I'm going to need to create a file named .xsapp. Now the .xsapp is pretty straightforward. It basically has no content. You place it in the root of your package, and let me say open with a text editor. You place it at the root, and it defines that this is an XS application, so that the content inside this package and sub-packages is an XS application. So we'll go ahead and save that. Empty file, nothing more to do with the XS app artifact itself. All right, now the second file that we'll create is a .xs access. Now this is where we define our access control. So if the XS app file basically exposes this package and its subpackages for the possibility of being accessed over HTTP, then we need something that is a little more granular, a file that can be placed into both the root package and all subpackages that control the access method and the authentication method that we will use. So this is a simple JSON notation file, and I'll go with the very basics here. We have to have one property called exposed, and this decides if this package is exposed to the outside world or not, and the default is that it is not exposed. So we have to say exposed true. So now we are exposed to the outside, and then we have to add our authentication mechanism. Authentication, and I want, at least initially, I want to use basic authentication. So transmission of username and password via HTTP, basic authentication. Of course, if you are going to use basic authentication, you should use HTTPS, which of course HANA Extended Application Services supports, and that way the password is not transmitted in clear text over the network. Now for the purposes of this demo, my test system is not set up for HTTPS, but don't take that as a recommendation on how you should do things. You should definitely have your system administrator set up HTTPS based access. We'll go ahead and say the method of authentication is basic. All right. So now I have my XS app that defines this as an XS application. I have my XS access file, defines the access method. And let's create one more file real quick, just so we have something to test with. Let's just create a very simple HTML file, just a little hello world. Let us test whether our access rights are correct or not. And this will just be a static HTML file. No server-side HTML framework. This will just be purely served out by the web server built into HANA Extended Application Services. So very quickly, head, title, the world, and body, each one, and the world. Save that file as well. Now, just as we did in the previous e-learning, we need to commit these new files to the repository. And now activate them to make them available for execution. Activation was successful. We can double check and we should see them on the server side in the repository now. Yes, we do. It's good. We are ready to test. So I'll go over and I'll bring up a web browser so that we can test this now. So I've got my web browser and I've already pointed it to the host name and the port for my HANA system and the HANA Extended Application Services. And you can see that you get this initial little check screen, just lets you know that XS is up and running. And then to build the path simply becomes uses the packages. And we created a package A1 videos, and then all of our content is in the root of that package. So now I would just type in index.html, and it's prompting me for my username and password. Therefore, we know our basic authentication request was correct. And we see our hello world. So we know that the web server is working, served out the content of this file, and basically we have simple HTML content, and we have access control on top of that. All right. Now we have access control at the root of our package, but let's say that we wanted to have a sub-package within our project and have a different access method for it. Maybe we wanted a sub-package where we have anonymous access. Maybe there's a service inside our project that we want to expose without needing authentication, even though maybe the root content does need authentication. So let's create a folder within our project, call it uncontrolled, and when we create a folder inside our project and then sync that to the repository, that will generate a package in the repository, a sub package. So we'll see that in a minute after I finish creating all my content and then expose it. So let's just make a copy of the index.html. And a copy of the XS access. So you only ever have one .xs app file, but you can have a different .xs access file for each of your subdirectories, each of your sub-packages. And they can change the rules. So even though the root requires basic authentication, we can come into this uncontrolled package and we can change the authentication to null. And this will make this an anonymous package, and all the content inside here will be able to run without requiring any form of authentication. And maybe just to test this, we'll change our hello world, say hello world anonymous. Well, let's go ahead and save both of these files. And we will go ahead and commit everything to the repository. And now I will activate our new content. And just to show to you what happened on the server side, we now have a new subpackage, uncontrolled. And of course, its content is available. And even if we go over to the navigator and I refresh, we will see that we have an uncontrolled package here, and of course we could then edit its properties like any other package, even though it was generated via the Project Explorer and creating a folder. It's still a full package as though we created it manually from the navigator. So we're ready to test now. Let's go ahead and close the browser, because otherwise basic authentication gets cached in the browser and be resent. And we want to get an accurate test and make sure it isn't just that it's the username and password that we typed in before that's coming through. But now we'll add the uncontrolled as just a part of the URL path, and I said uncontrolled. And then we'll do our index.html. Did not ask us for a username and password, but if I were to go back to the root of the package, it does ask me for a username and password. So it shows you that I have very granular control over the authentication mechanisms that I want to use. So we've seen how we can have a package that has basic authentication, one that has no authentication, it would be anonymous. What happens if you have the other extreme? What if you have content in a package within your project that you don't want released to the outside world at all? You want it to be completely unexposed or hidden. We can do that as well. So let's go ahead and create another folder inside our project. And I'll call this hidden, because this content will not be exposed to the outside, even though it sits within a project and a root package that is all exposed to the outside. And I'll just copy my excess access and my index.html. Let's change the excess access. So now we say exposed false, and our index world or not. Doesn't really matter what we put in here because we shouldn't get access. Nobody should be able to see that. We'll go ahead and save all those resources. And now I can commit my resources to the repository. And activate them. And if we retest and go to the hidden package, try to run our index.html from there, we get a 404 error, as though the content does not exist, although it does exist on the server. the server treats it as though it's not there, as though it is truly hidden because we said it's not exposed. And if we wanted to then expose it, maybe we did this temporarily while we were working on something, we could say exposed equals true, resave it, recommit, and activate. And now if I go back to my browser and I refresh, now we get our content.